Welcome to 10 TV Plus. Today is a 10 TV Plus weather impact alert day. And the reason why, Michael, we have some freezing rain on the way.
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the worst forms of wintry weather because, I mean, it doesn't matter really what you try to do to get traction. If you get some ice on the ground, everything's going to slide around.
Exactly. Now, again, locations that are most likely to get it will probably be outside of Franklin County. That's what we're thinking right now. So up there towards Delaware County, Knox County, Licking counties. We'll talk more specifics in a moment. But for everybody, we do have that winter weather advisory as we will be tracking a little bit of light freezing rain heading into tonight. Now, little impacts on the roads as roadway temperatures last checked now above freezing, but I think tree limbs, maybe power lines could get 1/10 of an inch of that coating of ice as we head into tonight. Also, not to mention icy bridges and overpasses, pretty important to point out there as well. So in the shaded color, which by the way covers just about all of you, we have that winter weather advisory. That is in effect from 7 p.m. tonight until 4 a.m. on your Thursday morning. That is just us saying, hey, look, we just want you to be aware of the fact that we could be looking at some light icing heading into tonight. Now, snow, no, that's not happening tonight. It's going to be too warm for that, but there will be a little bit of ice here in the forecast. We're not looking at any rain-snow mix, definitely no wind impacts either, but I do think a low-grade icing event and some low-grade travel impacts here could be in our cards heading into tomorrow morning. Now, as we walk you through this hour by hour, take a look at this right here by 8 o'clock. We are starting to gradually see that purple pushing up to the north. The purple and the pink, obviously, that is the ice on the map. But then take a look at this here. South of I-70, you see the purple. North of I-70, we're actually quite nice. And so if you do have to travel up to the north tonight, I don't think we'll have any issues early if you can do that early. But you'll want any travel to be wrapped up pretty quickly because eventually we do see this overspreading the area. The worst of it, though, is about 10 p.m. to midnight. Again, that 2-hour window from 10 p.m. to midnight, that's when you have the best combination of cold air and heavy precipitation. So again, all the cards are kind of in play to get some low-grade icing. By about 10:30, 11 o'clock, we continue to see this. Something happens, though, after 1 o'clock in the morning. We have a warm front, rather, pushing up to the north. Look what happens. Now you're getting more green on the map. That's because the temperatures will be warming up above freezing heading past midnight. As we head towards 3 a.m., look at this. A few isolated thunderstorms certainly possible. Then as we head towards 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, we clear things out. By sunrise tomorrow, this is all moving on out of here. The latest model guidance has actually increased the amount of ice accretion just a little bit. Now we're thinking about 1/10 of an inch appears likely. And you can see right now, again, I think the model might be jumping the gun in a few spots. Piked in, I think, 1/4 of an inch. That might be a bit extreme for you, but about 1/10 of an inch here. And what is the impact with that? Well, 1/10 of an inch of ice is not enough to bring down trees or power lines, but it is enough to make for some slick roads for those bridges and overpasses, which is why we want you to be aware. As we head into tonight, going into tomorrow, the amount of rainfall, again, this is going to vary based on location, but this strip of dark blue on the map, we could be looking at close to 1/2 inch, depending on exactly where you are. Lower amounts, though, as we head further off to the west going into this morning. Now, as we head off towards this evening, late tonight after midnight, there will be a risk of some thunderstorms here. The latest model data actually brought that marginal risk of severe into southern Ohio. Still, yeah, that's not in the viewing area. But as we head into central Ohio, we do have a chance of non-severe thunderstorms. What is that? A little bit of rain, a little bit of wind. No large hail, obviously no tornadoes, just a clap of thunder every now and again that might wake you up early in the morning. And again, that would be tonight after midnight. Long term, through next week, we keep things around average for this time of the year. Rainfall will be above average. As you'll see in a moment, we have multiple opportunities for rain. Now, take a look at the temperatures here. As we head towards tomorrow, sticks out like a sore thumb, right? We are way above average tomorrow. And then take a look at that heading into next week and beyond. It gets a whole lot cooler as we have a cold front sliding into the area. So here's a look at that 10 weather impact alert. And again, this is today's day planner. And as we look at today's forecast, the devil's in the details. At 11 o'clock, you can see that we had that freezing rain. By 1 o'clock, as we jump up above freezing, now we are not looking at that freezing rain anymore. Tomorrow morning, we are tracking rain in the morning hours, but then take a look at this. The sun actually comes out by Thursday afternoon, and look how mild it gets. We're talking the middle and upper 50s. That should be nice. And then we are stuck in the same conundrum on Saturday. Take a look at this right here. A little bit of mixed precip, and then we are flipping over to all rain heading into Saturday night as a system rolls into the area. Sunday and Monday don't look too bad. By Tuesday, we are tracking the risk of a little bit of snow showery activity that could linger into the day on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting time period here across the region because, I mean, we got a little bit of everything in that forecast. You got rain, you got ice, you got thunderstorms, maybe even some strong ones in the southern part of the state.
Yeah, a little clash of all the seasons right here. I do think long term by next week, things are shifting. We're going to downshift a bit in the temperature departments. Should be a little bit colder.
Yeah, and that cold is where we should be this time of year, get us back to kind of normal. But while we're kind of straddling that in-between zone, we've got to, of course, deal with those ice impacts out there, and that could be dangerous over this evening mostly.
Yeah, so we're not thinking, again, I think you and I discussed this before, about a half inch you're saying is enough to kind of be a risk for power lines and such.
Yeah, so I mean, the good news is we're not going to get there, but I do want to take a little bit of time to focus on just the different type of winter precip that we see out there across the region. Of course, normal rain, you get cold air up in the atmosphere, it melts, it turns into just normal rain down here at the surface in the winter. Once we start to get into freezing rain territory, that's when we're cold to start. It warms up a bit, but then it hits another cold layer right down there shallow near the ground and freezes again. If we're sleet, that cold layer is thicker, and if we're snow, that cold layer goes all the way to the ground. Again, we're dealing with the freezing rain side of things here, so we're watching for that rainfall to again freeze on contact as it moves down toward the surface and likely produce some icy glaze out there, especially bridges, overpasses, tree limbs, probably your car window, things like that as we head into this evening. As far as the impacts of that ice accumulation goes, with our forecast being mostly under a quarter inch, we're not expecting to see the worst impacts. You should probably limit your travel. Watch for the ice on the trees. If you got any weak or damaged trees out there, you could see some limbs out of that. May result in a scattered power outage. You got to get into the heavier ice though for the real nasty impacts, and part of the country could see that. Between a quarter and a half inches where you start to get more broken limbs and numerous power outages, and anything over a half inch, that's when you get into some really catastrophic ice impacts. Again, the good news is we're going to be on the lower end of the system, but our concern is going to be for bridges and overpasses. As temperatures fall heading into this evening, most of those roads will maintain their temperature, but those bridges and overpasses, with the wind coming underneath and really having a thin layer there to keep that thermal energy involved, it's going to lose that heat quickly, and we will see those bridges likely drop below freezing, at least for a time across the region. So that would be the biggest concern heading into this evening. When it comes to road temperatures as they sit here heading into the afternoon, most of them all above the freezing mark. You saw some new data just come in there, and better news too. That second number we can put onto some of those sites, that's the ground temperature underneath the road. And we're seeing areas up on the northeast side where about 42 degrees, same on the southwest side, about 42 degrees. That means there's thermal energy in the soil underneath the road. So most roads will be able to melt a good portion of the freezing rain that comes down, but we'll have to, of course, watch several of those roads. Let me get my graphics in order there for those icing concerns. The other concern we'll keep an eye on is power lines out there. A half inch of ice could add up to 500 pounds to power lines. The good news, again, we're not expecting near that much, but the problem is you put ice on power lines, you add to the weight and you change the shape, you blow wind across that, and you can get those lines kind of bouncing up and down a little bit. That happens too much, that's where you could see some damage happen to the power lines, or the power outages becoming a bigger possibility. The good news, again, with us being on the lower end, power outage risk should be small heading into this evening. I do want to leave you with these ice safety tips out there across the region. Avoid hitting the brakes if you're out there driving. Let off the gas and downshift gears instead of using the brakes. Keep the wheel straight. Hold it tightly if you are feeling those loss of traction conditions. Of course, use extra caution on curves and don't overreact. That's really the big thing that gets people in trouble, is they steer too much. and then, well, they've just lost control.
Steering too much and also slamming on the brakes,
Yeah.
which is hard because that's your knee-jerk
natural
reaction is to hit the brakes, but that's the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's really just staying calm and realizing that, those bridges, overpasses, I think, like we said, those are going to be the main focus tonight.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to keep you posted on this here because I do think things could get a little bit dicey this evening. But just to reiterate, we think the worst impacts are probably north and west in Ohio, opposed to where we live in our part of the state. But we want you to be aware in case you have to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you use caution out there and stay safe this evening. But we also want to get you update on the latest with weather going on, not just here in Central Ohio. It's the Weather Impact Show, so we cover weather across the country. And as opposed to the wintry weather we have here in Central Ohio, back out west in California, still dealing with the impacts of wildfires, except now residents are dealing with heavy rain and mudslides. Tom Waite reports on the latest this afternoon from those impacted and their worries for the future.
Along the ocean on PCH, in the ruins of what was some of the most desired real estate on the planet, lies a toxic mess. Stopping debris flow from reaching the ocean seems like an impossible task. Combine that with the charred hillsides and canyons on the other side of the highway, and the potential crisis of what could happen here if we get too much rain is what's keeping city, county, and state officials awake at night. An army of engineers and work crews are checking and clearing sewers and drains, and even setting up temporary dams. Mark Prestrea is the director of LA County Public Works.
And we're just, like I said, creating a bunch of traps. And then the last ditch effort is right at the beach. You'll see where we have berms set up, and we're trying to force the material to lay down on the sand before it gets out to the ocean.
Caltrans is shutting down PCH from Chautauqua Boulevard to Carbon Beach Terrace in Malibu because of the risk of mud and debris flows.
I'm looking for 3 more days of rain. I'm not sure what that's going to do to me.
Malibu resident Earl Laracy's home made it through both the Franklin and the Palisades fires, but now he faces the threat of landslides.
I've lost all my vegetation, and there's a hill behind me and there's a hill in front of me. I've already had, from the rain we had just a couple days ago, I had a mudslide come down. I've got about a foot of mud sitting in my my parking area where I normally park my car.
Sandbags were hauled out for residents, but how much they can protect is a big question. LA City Council member Tracy Park.
When you stand at PCH and you just look up at what's above, there's no K-rail or sandbags enough in the world that is going to hold that entire mess back if we have a serious issue with mud and water and debris flow, which is why workers have been on the ground around the clock.
Park's anxiety over how precarious the situation is echoed by residents.
The hill comes down on the backside of your property. Sandbag is not going to stop it.
And finally today, let's check out some new video into us here at 10 TV. An atmospheric river, of course, hit California. We've been talking about the impacts of that rain and caused quite a bit of damage. Take a look at this. A house said the Russian River went sliding down after its hillside crumbled. Authorities said the house was empty at the time. That storm system dropped up to 9 inches of rain in an area that was already seeing some flood warnings out there. There's a chance of more flooding through today. It's just feast and famine out there when it comes to weather
that's
sometimes.
typical California weather for you. You know, you get 6 months where not a drop of rain, and then bam, everything comes at once.
Yeah, and you see the impacts of that there. You just can't support that much rainfall at one time. It's a crazy video there. And from too much water flowing to water hardly flowing at all. The iconic New York side of the Niagara Falls was seen covered in thick ice and snow as extreme cold hit the area. This was Tuesday last week when we were dealing with that polar blast coming through. According to the Niagara Parks, the falls never fully freeze over. Mist and spray create the freeze and create the illusion that the falls are completely frozen. But of course that water continues to move underneath.
It's hard to get frozen water to freeze, or it's hard to get moving water to freeze, rather.
I mean, I've been to Niagara Falls a couple times, and it's a spectacular sight. I can't imagine seeing it like this.
If you try to cross over to the Canadian side, it takes a long time. You got to wait in that customs line for quite a while.
Indeed. And one more story to bring you today. Today, hey, look, it's us. It's National Weather Person's Day. Tooting our own horn here a little bit. It's celebrated on February 5th each year and honors all of those who work in fields related to weather. The reason it's held on February 5th, actually, I didn't know this until I looked it up a little bit ago, John Jeffrey's birthday. He was born in 1744. He was one of the first U.S. weather observers. How about that?
Wow. So we haven't had weather observers longer than 200 years. That's crazy.
No.
Under 200 years.
I mean, he was really doing what you need to do when it comes to documenting the weather. He was taking measurements daily. He was watching trends. He's really doing some of the same stuff we do now.
Although I actually did that math incorrectly. It'd be not quite 250 years. Anyways.
It's not been as long as you think it would
Yeah,
be.
you're right.
Yeah.
But no, that's absolutely, you know, I can say this much though. Every meteorologist that's in this field, they all have the exact same story. How did you get interested in weather? I was a young kid, and it was very authentic. And, you know, I just started getting excited about storms, looking up at the daytime sky, getting excited as I track the weather changing. That's my story.
I say my story, again, like many, started as a kid, except I was afraid of storms. So, like, I would watch a meteorologist to learn about the weather, about what was happening, and then that sort of knowledge became my comfort to get over that fear. And then I just kept learning more and more and more, and eventually,
knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Speaking of knowledge, Jerry's going to be here later today.
Yep. Jerry Martz, and he'll have a tricky forecast on his hand. So go ahead and watch him tonight on 10 TV News starting right at 6. For myself and Michael, that is it now for our 10 TV Plus show. We'll see you later.